Hola, and today we're going to be discussing airport and airplane tips. So, I recently went on a trip to Spain and I had a good experience, but I found some things that maybe could have been better. So, I want to share that with you. And so, for my first video, this is going to be more general rather than destination specific about the experience before the actual destination that you arrive in. So, tip number one is get to the airport at least 2 to 3 hours early. Prior to your flight, you're gonna have to go through security checkpoints, and then you're gonna have to go through baggage claim and everything like that. So that's gonna take at least upwards of probably 30, 40 minutes, depending on how crowded the airport is. Like, we had a late afternoon flight, so it wasn't that bad, but still, you have to get there early because there's also traffic going to the airport, especially if you live in a big city like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, wherever. And if you live far away from the airport, you're gonna have to estimate how much time it'll take you and then plan accordingly. And also eating in the airport, which we'll get to later, but eating in the airport is a must do, and you have to plan accordingly because eating will take up at least 30 to 40 minutes, again, depending on if you're with other people, if you're by yourself, where you're eating, if you're eating in the airport or before you go to the airport, if you're stopping somewhere. So all of that has to be taken into consideration before you are planning the day that you get to the airport. And if you have an overnight flight, the airport might be a little less crowded if you get there late afternoon rather than at night, because a lot of people have flights either early morning or late at night. So that's tip number one, get to the airport early. This next tip, number two, is a more general one, but you want to book your entire vacation earlier. Now, this is especially important for the plane because plane fares get extremely expensive if you were to book it a week before rather than 2 months before. So if you were to book an airplane ticket or multiple tickets a week in advance, you're looking at upwards of $500 to $1,000 more per ticket rather than booking 2 months early or 3 months early or whatever. So just plan your trips earlier, and for planes especially. Airfare to Europe is already pretty expensive. If you're already in Europe and taking planes over Europe, then it's not. But from the US, transatlantic, from the US to Europe, like say from the US to Spain, it's going to be significantly more expensive than from the US to, say, Mexico or Canada, because it's transatlantic flight, which means it's going over the ocean. It takes a lot of fuel and everything. There are no places to stop. So make sure you plan early. Probably I would recommend 6 months early, but if you are doing a last minute type of a thing, at least a month early. Otherwise, the tickets will get really, really expensive, especially for Europe, but for across the world. So that's tip number two, book your trips early. So for tip number three, I was gonna make a separate video about this, but I mean, it's a pretty small topic and it's a subcategory of this topic of airplanes, airports, and air food. So on the plane, if you have a transatlantic flight, trans-Pacific flight, wherever you're going, if it's longer than, say, 6 hours, if it's overnight, whatever, it probably will have food. Now, the pros of it having food is you don't have to pay for food in the airport. I mean, you have to pay a lot for the flight, so there's that. But the food is not good, and it has really hardly any variety. If you're vegan, vegetarian, they might have an option for you, but they probably won't, especially if you're vegan. A lot of the stuff that they offer, I noticed, has eggs, milk, dairy of some kind in it, even if it is vegetarian. So there's that. There's not a whole lot of different meat options. Like, I mean, it's mostly like bland chicken with some kind of rice or vegetables, or like a steak with vegetables, but it's really, really overcooked mostly, and in like a really odd sauce, and it tastes like, well, microwave food, because that's what it is. But if you wait, if you get there early and wait a little bit, then you might be able to get food in the airport, because the food in the airport you are gonna have to pay for. It's pretty expensive, but you can choose what food you want. On the airplane, there are normally only 2 to 3 choices, maybe 3. There's mostly only 2 choices. One is a vegetarian option, and then one is a meat option. But for people that don't like pasta, people that don't like chicken, what do you get? So, which is why I'm saying, get food in the airport, because the food is going to be overpriced, but it's going to be food that you're choosing yourself and that you know you're going to like. Now, there's also a story that I have. So on the plane back from Spain, we were having, so the meal was salad with like ravioli or whatever, and then so the lady in front of me, 2 rows in front of me, actually, so she ate the salad, and then I noticed at the bottom of the salad there were these little seeds, so I tried them, and they taste like sunflower seeds. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of people started rushing to the front of the plane, and she was having an allergic reaction to the nuts in the salad. So if you have an allergy to nuts, to dairy, to seafood, I mean, I doubt that they'll serve seafood on the plane, but if they do, to any of these things, then you're better off getting food in the airport or having food before you leave for the airport. I mean, you're gonna be hungry, but you might not be as hungry as if you don't eat anything at the airport or on the plane because you don't like the food. So tip number 3, eat before you get on the plane, or if you don't and you like the options, that's good too, but sometimes the options are very, very, very disgusting, and they're really not varied at all, and they have they have a lot of room for improvement, but they're microwavable foods, so try to get some food before the plane. Lastly, for tip number 4, if you have an overnight flight, it's very hard to get sleep. Now, I'm saying this honestly. I tried for probably 5 hours of the 7-hour flight to Spain to get sleep. I kept closing my eyes and opening them and closing my eyes. The plane was very loud, and if you have a window seat and try to lean your head against the window, the vibrations of the plane make it really hard to sleep. So I recommend, the pillows that go around your neck, they can be comfortable, but they supply, most flights will supply you pillows and blankets. The blanket is good, but normally the pillow is really flat, so you can use it as like a backrest, but I don't recommend sleeping with it. It's very uncomfortable. If you have a window seat and the cabin is very low, there's no humming sound, then you can probably get some sleep. If you have an aisle seat or a middle seat, I don't know, but you can actually lean your head up against the backboard of the chair, and then you can support your neck with the neck pillow and then your back with the other pillow, and try to get some sleep. But I recommend at night, if they offer you tea or coffee, don't take it because that has caffeine. Even the tea sometimes has caffeine, so don't risk it. But do drink plenty of water, especially before you go to sleep, because a plane dehydrates you. it makes you so thirsty on the plane, and sometimes they don't come around, especially during the night, they don't come around as much so as to not wake people up. But get as much water as when they're there. Get at least 3 cups at a time. I know it sounds kind of weird, but even if you just keep it with you, you're not going to regret it, because then you can just drink your water before you go to sleep. If you have any rituals that you do before you go to sleep, like brushing your teeth, using the bathroom, reading a book, whatever, then do that before you go to sleep. Try to simulate your own bedroom at night, because I mean, you're gonna need the sleep, especially if you're going to some place like Europe or a touristy place. You're gonna need your sleep because you're gonna be walking around a lot, and you're gonna be tired, and jet lag may or may not affect you, but if it does, then you're gonna need sleep. A good night's sleep is the key to success in Europe. So tip number 1, get to the airport early. Tip number 2, book in advance, far in advance, if you can. Tip number 3, eat in the airport before your flight. Tip number 4, if you have a nighttime ritual, do that. Get water. Try to simulate your living area or your bedroom, like here. Okay, so that's airport and airplane.